Hi everyone, today I'm going to present my presentation entitled Hijrah Community Among Indonesian Celebrities, Contesting Idea Through Urban Mobility. This article analyzes the struggle of the Hijrah community for their identity and in the context of increasingly plural urban public spaces. Although several studies have attempted to examine this group of Hijrah, most have focused on new media, and only few have revealed their daily mobilities in urban life. By using the new paradigm of mobility popularized by Uri, in which there are 5 interrelated dimensions, namely physical travel, physical movement, imaginative travel, virtual travel, and communicative travel, as well as obtaining data through extensive literature study. This study shows that the identity of urban Muslim from the Kajian Musyawarah as one of the influential Hijrah community based in Jakarta, and a new socio-religious movement are formed within the framework of what Manuel Castells called so-called legitimizing identity through urban mobility, in which they contest many social dimensions. Okay, to begin with, in 2018, to be exact, on 9th to 11th November, there was a religious festival on a large scale carrying the title Hijrah Fest 2018. The event, which was initiated by the group of capital celebrities who call themselves the Hijrah community, took place at the Jakarta Convention Center. Every day, the organizers provide 5,000 entrance tickets with a price of 80,000 rupiah for each ticket. The festival, which also presents well-known features on social media such as Abdullah Gymnasiar, Abdul Somad, Adi Hidayat, Hanan Ataki, Felix Xiao, and others, not only consume ticket sales every day. However, it has proven to be a new magnet for the urban millennial generations who dominate these 3 consecutive days of events. Not a few of them came from the buffer cities of Jakarta such as Bekasi, Bogor, Tangerang, and Depok. The reporter for Hidayatullah.com, Kholis Akbar, for instance, enthusiastically mentioned the high enthusiasm of young people attending the 2018 Hijrah Fest as a sign of the failure of the spirit of liberalism among young people, especially in Indonesia. The Hijrah phenomena is inherent in the counter ideas of what they understand as liberalism, coupled with the image of urban life filled with immorality. Hijrah is understood as an effort of ethical puritanism. Thus, they believe that getting closer to religious teachings, becoming more pious, and gathering Muslim in a Muslim brotherhood are the best way to abandon mundane ideas. Apart from, of course, contesting Islamic identity amidst a pluralist urban life. At least in the last 2 decades, various activities with the theme of Hijrah have often taken place in public spaces, including house-to-house recitation or pengajian, especially in social media, which is managed seriously. When viewed from the perspective of Islamic history, etymologically, Hijrah here is different from the original definition, which means the migrations of the Prophet Muhammad and his followers from Mecca to Medina in 622. And in this paper, Hijrah contains the same symbolic meaning to mobility. However, there was a re-understanding of historical events in Islamic civilizations that became more toward efforts to be more pious, to get closer to religion and God with the principles of upholding Islamic law. Apart from that, of course, the Hijrah movement in Indonesian society was also encouraged by the birth of a new urban Muslim group that had socio-historical differences from traditional Muslim communities in rural areas. Although there are other factors such as the expansion of various transnational Islamism movements originating from other countries, including Salafism, Wahhabism, Tablighi Jamaat, Jamiatul al-Ikhwan al-Muslimin or Muslim Brotherhood, and Hizbut Tahrir. Another thing is the return of Indonesian students who studied in the Middle East, especially Saudi Arabia, who generally belong to Salafism. Besides, this is because Islamic movements were pressured for a long time by a repressive New Order regime and were unable to articulate their idea and resistance to the public sphere. According to Kunto Wijoyo, this generation is part of the urban phenomenon that was born from the Islamic middle class in big cities. Therefore, their religious socialization is no longer through Islamic institutions such as madrasas or Islamic boarding schools, but public schools, peer groups, or anonymous sources such as books, internet, tapes, and videos, which have recently been increasingly active through social media as well as WhatsApp. In the capital city, a group of public figures, mostly celebrities, have gathered in a community which they call the Kajian Musyawarah. As the name implies, this community ties together in urban recitation forums with the terminology Musyawarah, which is an acronym for Muda, Sakinah, Mawadah, and Warahmah. This literally means young generation who are calm, peaceful, full of love and hope and compassion. Initially, this community often held an exclusive recitation or pengajian for themselves, but then scheduled recitation which was open to the public in response to the public interest who want to listen to the sermon of the famous preachers. This community also later became the main actor in organizing the Hijrah Fest annually. Together with Hijrah community networks in other big cities such as Bandung through Pemuda Hijrah, Yogyakarta, and Surabaya. Kajian Musyawarah immediately became the new magnet for urban Muslim communities who were not only able to maximize social media networks through Instagram, YouTube, and other social media platforms, but it also fills public spaces both physically and digitally in various socio-religious activities, as well as roadshow, pengajian, social services, and so on. As a representation of the urban Muslim middle class phenomena in Indonesia, where many scholars have carried out their study in various approaches, we can see how the Muslim middle class play a significant role, especially after the fall of the new order. In political contestation, for instance, in the 5 years succession at the gubernatorial election to the presidential election cannot be separated from how the interests of the political elites and oligarchs seek to gain sympathy and support from the society or this community, which demographically increase in number. Especially if the candidates competing in the election play opposing tension, so it can become a political community as voting power. The sentiment of identity politics, which in this case Islamic identity, is proven to be quite effective in influencing the political constellation, which then also influence the daily socio-cultural life of the community, even to this day. The urban Muslim still lives debates among scholars, especially how they contest in public spaces, in state life context on the one hand, and how they intersect with various social dimensions, especially in pluralistic urban life on the other hand. Similarly, the contradiction that arise in their daily practices. On the one hand, they want to show personal and impersonal piety as a pretext for carrying out religious orders. On the other hand, materialistic urban life becomes an allure that traps consumptive lifestyles and behaviors. Thus, it seems to coincide tightly. Religious Puritanism, in urban life, therefore, does not prove to be an antithesis of material culture. The encounter of this urban Muslim middle class with urban life is difficult to avoid social negotiation from both fellow Muslims and those of different religions. On a broader scale, Muslim identity is also in dilemmatic position, considering that on the one hand, it seeks to accentuate it as a representation of piety, where the fundamental elements of it are transcendental matters such as orderly worship and carry out religious law. On the other hand, however, urban lifestyle includes shopping at shopping malls, luxurious living, including regular updating content on Instagram and YouTube, which is certainly not free, as well as casual trip abroad to be contradictory immanent matters. Similarly, when the symbolic reproduction spaces imagined by Habermas directly and indirectly become an arena for the struggle for dominations over Muslim identities and the like, which of course holds a variety of interpretations, either certain ideological interests behind them, or there are economic interests in which it is related. Therefore, the Indonesian Muslim middle class identity is then interpreted as the imagination of the brotherhood between fellow Muslims, which is still being contested. Although symbologically it can be shown from pure religious attributes such as fashion or whatever is produced and consumed, including in terms of this discourse. Meanwhile, in the digital space, maximizing the use of social media has also become a spectacle which is seriously managed because the accentuation of identity can more easily reach public acceptance in the forms of various contents. By targeting the urban Muslim, the activities of the Kajian Musyawarah as an activist for the Hijrah community in physical and digital public spaces show what is known as a mobility turn, a new paradigm that sees the connection between 5 forms of mobility that shape and reshape various networks, namely physical travel, physical movement, imaginative travel, virtual travel, and communicative travel. John Uri, in this context, explained that physical travel means everyone's physical journey to work, relax, family life, leisure, migration, and even escape. In the Kajian Musyawarah context, as a representation of the Hijrah community, recitation or pengajian activities, and relaxing with activities in urban public spaces, especially malls and cafes, are part of daily behavior in living urban life. Meanwhile, physical movement, which refers to the physical movement of objects sent to producers, consumers, and retailers, can be seen from how most celebrities of the Kajian Musyawarah, as well as other Hijrah communities, do business massively, especially Islamic clothing through advertisement on social media. Imaginative travel then means an imaginative journey to another place through memories, text, pictures, television, and films. In this part, which bears a resemblance to communicative travel, the screen culture proved to be an inherent character of the urban community exposed to most of the day. Virtual travel then often takes place in real time on the internet and thus transcends geographic and social distances, as well as communicative travel through person-to-person messages via letter, telephone, mobile phone, email, instant messaging, and video conferencing. In the midst of the current pandemic, teleconferencing using various medium of the application solve about this. This new paradigm of mobility becomes the starting point for seeing how the Kajian Musyawarah contest identity on behalf of Muslim Brotherhood, or in Arabic term called as Ukhuwah Islamiyah, along with urban mobility, which inevitably intersects various social dimensions. The discussion led to the contact with socio-religious movements that are more historical in Indonesian society, such as Muhammadiyah and Nahdlatul Ulama, as the next discussion, before elaborating on the issue of identity, which is nothing but a social construction by examining building materials from history, geography, biology, geospatial factors, productive and reproductive institutions, collective memory and personal fantasy, and the apparatus of power and religious revelations. The final discussion is about urban mobility and how the Kajian Musyawarah is to live a pluralistic urban life in the sense that is intersect adherence of other religions to differences in understanding between fellow Muslims. Not only that, the urban spaces that are connected directly and indirectly also shape the consciousness and imagination of everyone, which in this case is the identity itself. Thank you.